Move, you floor-scrubbing nobody. The words cracked through the conference room like a breaking bone as Grant Halston, billionaire CEO and professional tyrant, slammed his Italian leather shoe into Mara Solis' cleaning cart. The metal frame screeched across the marble floor, a bottle of disinfectant flew into the wall, and a ripple of laughter spread through the room. Sharp, cold, and meant to humiliate. Halston didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He didn't even look at her. He looked annoyed, like Mara's existence within breathing distance of his empire was an insult to the carpet beneath his shoes. Careful, he added loudly, tilting the thick Mandarin proposal in his hand as though it were a sacred relic. I don't want the dirt from your uniform contaminating my documents. Executives chuckled. One covered his grin with a hand. Another openly scoffed. Colin Marwick, the smirking VP with his Harvard ring always flashing, leaned back with a grin. Maybe she can help translate it, Colin said mockingly. Though, he shrugged, Google Translate might still be smarter. More laughter. The humiliation hit like a slap. But Mara didn't move. Couldn't move. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the mahogany table, forcing her breath to steady as she tried to keep her face blank. Because the cruel truth was this. The Mandarin characters on Halston's proposal, the complex document these men couldn't decipher, she understood every single word, every symbol, every technical phrase, every nuance her father had once taught her in long, warm evenings filled with learning, love, and sandalwood-scented pages. But here, in this room full of power and arrogance, she was invisible, just the girl who scrubbed their floors. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the vibration slicing through her chest like a warning shot. 72 hours until eviction, a number that stalked her every breath. Halston slammed the document down. Anyone who can translate this proposal gets my salary for a day, he announced. $27,400. Instant silence. Then Colin barked a laugh. That's more than she makes in half a year. Everyone laughed. Again. Mara kept her eyes down, focusing on the cloth in her hand, but her heart punched hard against her ribs. $27,400. The exact amount she needed. The exact number standing between keeping her mother alive and losing everything. Her fingers brushed the jade translator's pen hidden inside her uniform. Her father's last gift, her quiet superpower. The weight of it grounded her, reminded her. She wasn't nobody. She wasn't dirt. She wasn't useless. She was the daughter of Adrian Solis, a prodigy who spoke 3 languages by age 10, a girl trained by a scholar, a ghost with a genius no one had ever bothered to see. But speaking up now could destroy everything. Her job, her mother's medical coverage, her fragile stability. What would Halston do if he realized the nobody he insulted was smarter than half the people sitting at his table? Would he reward her, or crush her for daring to have value? As the executives argued and fumbled over their mistranslated guesses, Mara slipped quietly out of the room, her footsteps soft and unseen. Because this cruel, humiliating, enraging moment was the beginning of something she didn't yet understand. She didn't know it, but something had shifted. A spark, a fracture, a tiny rebellion beginning to breathe. Invisible for 5 years, silent for half her life, cornered by poverty, grief, and an arrogant empire built from the ashes of her father's career. But today humiliation had lit a fuse. She walked away from the conference room with her cleaning cart rattling beside her and the jade pen warm against her palm. Something inside her whispered, not this time. Not today. Not when the same company that destroyed her father dared to mock her brilliance. Not when her mother's life hung in the balance. Not when destiny knocked disguised as a Mandarin document. She was done being invisible, and nothing in the world was more dangerous than a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Because once the truth about her talent surfaced, no insult in that room would ever be enough to bury her again. And they were about to learn that the girl they mocked could unravel their entire empire. Mara pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway, Halston's insult still ringing in her ears. Floor-scrubbing nobody. It was amazing, she thought, how quickly powerful people reduced others to nothing. How easily they stepped on those they depended on without ever noticing. But the Mandarin characters on the proposal, Halston waved like a trophy. She could read them as easily as breathing. The executives who mocked her didn't realize the girl they dismissed could unravel every sentence of that 30-page document faster than any translation software on the market. Her fingers brushed the jade pen in her pocket, her father's final gift. It carried the scent of sandalwood and memory, a reminder of a time before life collapsed, before exhaustion, before eviction notices, before Halston Dynamics crushed everything. 15 years ago, Mara had been the child teachers admired, the girl who spoke Mandarin, Spanish, and English with the ease of someone changing hairstyles. Her father, Adrian Solis, believed languages were superpowers. Words build bridges, he used to say, and bridges let you walk where others can't. He'd worked at Halston Dynamics for 15 years, building their Asian market connections from the ground up, until the strategic restructuring kicked him out with 2 months of rent and zero health insurance. And when the cough that started as stress turned into stage 4 cancer, every savings they had evaporated. Debt climbed. Insurance denied them. And when Adrian finally pressed the jade pen in her hand, thin, weak, but still proud, she knew the truth. This pen wasn't a souvenir. It was a burden, a promise. 3 months later, he was gone. Her mother, Lien, worked multiple cleaning jobs until the first stroke snatched her strength and half their income. Mara dropped out of school. College dreams vanished. There was only survival now. At 23, Mara's life ran in loops, cleaning Halston Dynamics from 4 p.m. to midnight, caring for her mother until dawn, and translating academic papers online under her pseudonym Linguistic Bridge for $22 per hour whenever clients appeared. Rent, medication, groceries, debt. Every month, she survived by inches. For 5 years, she perfected being invisible. She emptied trash cans while executives bragged about billion-dollar deals. She wiped whiteboards while hearing conversations about Asian markets and Hispanic demographics. Conversations she understood more deeply than the people paid to make decisions. She learned that Halston slashed retirement contributions while purchasing a $14 million home. She learned Colin Marwick stole credit from Neera Dalvi. She learned diversity statistics meant nothing behind closed doors. Knowledge without power was suffocating. And the eviction notice taped to their apartment door was a ticking bomb. 72 hours until court. No savings, no miracle. Then the envelope arrived at 10:17 a.m. from Hangtech Innovations. Mara noticed everything. The Shanghai postmark, the trembling flicker in Halston's face, the sudden urgency across the executive floor. The translation team was scattered across Asia. The document was in Mandarin. The deadline was strict. 72 hours. The same countdown as her eviction. When Halston mocked her in front of the room and offered $27,400 to anyone who could translate the 30-page proposal, she felt the universe tightening around her. The exact amount she needed. But the risk was enormous. Revealing her fluency could destroy her job. Failing would make her target. Succeeding could threaten the wrong ego. That night, at 1:43 a.m., she sat in the dim kitchen beside the eviction notice and the jade pen. Her mother slept fitfully in the next room, the glow of medical monitors casting blue shadows. Mara stared at both, the notice and the pen, and something inside her shifted. She wouldn't expose herself. Not yet, but she could test them. On Saturday night, she returned to Halston Dynamics in her cleaning uniform, the perfect disguise. The security guard buzzed her in with a tired wave. "Mama needs medicine," she said, letting her accent thicken intentionally. He nodded sympathetically. The executive floor was silent and empty. Inside the conference room, she found the whiteboard covered in disastrous translation attempts. Wrong tones, wrong grammar, wrong meanings, wrong everything. One misunderstanding could cost millions. Another could trigger a legal meltdown. Mara took a breath, pulled out the jade pen, and corrected 3 crucial sections, just enough to prove expertise without revealing her full ability. Then she signed the bottom. Night Owl. A quiet warning. A silent challenge. A spark. She wiped the table clean and slipped into the hallway, heart pounding. This wasn't admission. This was strategy. A A test of worth. A test of danger. A test of how much her hidden skills could shift the floor beneath the powerful. What she didn't expect was the chaos her anonymous corrections would unleash the next morning, and the betrayal waiting from the one man most desperate to keep her brilliance buried. By Sunday morning, Mara returned to the executive floor with her cart, pretending to dust the hallway while keeping one ear tuned to the conference room. The moment she heard raised voices, she slowed her pace, heart thudding. "Who the hell is Night Owl?" Grant Halston's voice cracked like thunder. Mara peeked through the narrow glass panel. Halston stood rigid, the corrected whiteboard behind him. Executives hovered anxiously, murmuring theories. "Security confirmed no unauthorized entry," Colin Marwick said, arms folded. "Which means someone on our team has been holding out." Holding out? He said like a crime. Mara watched Colin study the corrections. His eyes narrowed, gears turning. Then his expression shifted, an idea forming, sharp and opportunistic. Before she could process it, he casually lifted the eraser and wiped away Mara's signature. Night Owl disappeared in 3 strokes. Colin turned smoothly toward Halston. "I did those corrections," he said, voice steady and confident. "Didn't want to brag about my Mandarin lessons until I was sure I could contribute." Mara's breath caught. Halston actually smiled, a rare predatory flash. Finally, someone showing initiative. "Take point on this, Marwick. Point. Leadership. Credit. For her work." Mara felt something in her chest twist until it hurt. This was worse than being invisible. This was someone profiting directly from her brilliance while she stayed silent in the shadows. She couldn't speak up, not without exposing herself, not when eviction, medication, and survival balanced on her secrecy. Colin accepted the praise with the lazy arrogance of a man receiving something he didn't earn. Then he flipped the page and butchered another sentence, confidently mistranslating a phrase that Mara knew would shift the entire agreement into dangerous territory. She clenched her jaw. This wasn't just unfair. It was reckless. That evening, after putting her mother to bed, Mara spread the photograph pages across the trembling surface of their kitchen table. She translated until her hand cramped, jade pen moving across paper with furious precision. And that's when she found it. A clause. Small, hidden, dangerous. A workforce optimization requirement that, if misread, would allow Halston Dynamics to lay off 300 workers within 60 days. Her mother's cousin worked at that plant. So did dozens of immigrant families who, like hers, had fought tooth and nail for stability. Mara's stomach dropped. If Colin continued mistranslating sections this carelessly and Halston signed the agreement, those families would lose everything. Her pen trembled. Help the company that destroyed her father? Or stay silent and let hundreds suffer? It was agony, one more impossible choice. On Monday morning, things got worse. New security cameras had been installed on the executive floor. A message from HR ordered all cleaning staff to finish before 7 p.m. Her after-hours window, gone. During the day, she hid in bathroom stalls, translating by hand. She worked in a supply closet during lunch. Her eyes burned. Her fingers ached. Her body begged for rest. But eviction loomed in 58 hours. Hangtech's deadline hit in 47 hours. Her mother's blood pressure was spiking, and Colin Marwick kept parading her brilliance like it was his birthright. By Monday evening, she'd completed around 40% of the document. Exhausted but determined, she slipped another set of Night Owl notes into the conference room. From behind the wall, she heard Colin again. "Yeah, I added those this morning," he said casually. He stole her work with the same ease he breathed. Her jaw tightened. Her hands shook. She could taste the bitterness rising in her throat. The countdown continued. 56 hours until eviction. 47 hours until Hangtech walked away. And no one, not Halston, not Colin, realized their entire future relied on a woman they humiliated every day. By Tuesday morning, the truth hit like a hammer. "We have a security breach," the chief announced in the executive meeting. Mara, arranging coffee service, kept her expression neutral as security footage played. a shadowy figure entering the conference room after hours. The camera angle didn't show a face, just a silhouette. Investigate everyone, Halston ordered, especially maintenance. They have access. Mara felt Colin's gaze drilling into the side of her face. Did he suspect? Was he just paranoid? Or did he simply hate the idea of someone else being smarter? By afternoon, all cleaning staff were being interviewed. When Mara sat across from the security chief, she slipped into the persona she'd used for years. Soft accent, lowered eyes, limited English. "No understand," she murmured, shrugging gently. "I clean only. No touch papers." The security chief nodded, satisfied. But Colin lingered. When they were alone, he leaned in, Harvard ring tapping the desk like a threat. "Funny," he whispered. "You understand English perfectly when I give instructions." Mara kept her gaze down. Instructions simple, questions complicated. He leaned closer, voice dropping into something colder. "I think you understand more than you pretend." That evening, she opened her locker and froze. It had been searched. Everything was in disarray. Her stomach dropped when she realized what was missing. The jade pen. Her father's pen. A shadow moved near the break room doorway. "You looking for this?" Colin twirled the pen between his fingers, smirking like a man who'd stolen a crown jewel. "Unusual item for a cleaner," he said. "These characters mean knowledge, don't they?" Mara reached for it instinctively, but he snapped his hand back. "Security's concerned," he said calmly. "Foreign items. Espionage. You understand." Her throat tightened. The next morning, HR issued her a formal warning. Possession of unauthorized materials. Suspicious behavior. Failure to properly store personal belongings. Her lifeline. Her inheritance. Gone. The countdown ticked louder. Eviction in 34 hours. Hang tech deadline in 30 hours. Her mother in the ER. Money gone. Hope fading. But when Mara accessed Colin's computer during her lunch break, heart pounding, hands shaking, she discovered something that froze her blood. He wasn't just stealing her work. He was sabotaging the proposal, deliberately mistranslating key sections, hiding dangerous clauses, turning Hang Tech's offer into a legal disaster waiting to explode. If Halston signed the document as Colin had twisted it, Halston Dynamics would be sued, investigated, destroyed, and Colin would let them walk into it without blinking. Mara staggered back from the desk, breath trembling. This wasn't about credit anymore. This was corruption, sabotage, revenge wrapped in a smile. When she returned to cleaning, Colin cornered her. "I know it's you," he said quietly. "The mysterious translator." Mara froze. "I checked personnel files," he continued. "Your mother is Lien Solis. Your father Adrian worked here, and we downsized him." Mara's mask slipped. "My father was an asset to this company," she whispered sharply. Colin's eyes gleamed. "There it is. Your real voice." He leaned in. "That pen you keep clinging to? You'll get it back when I decide. Unless," he smiled, slow and cruel, "you want immigration to look into your mother's expired visa?" Her blood ran cold. He didn't know everything, but he knew enough to hurt her, enough to destroy her. Her silence or her truth. Both carried consequences, and time was running out, because now Mara wasn't just fighting for her home. She was fighting a man willing to bury her to protect his lies. The atmosphere inside Halston Dynamics shifted the moment Thursday dawned. The executive floor buzzed with tension, tight footsteps, whispered conversations, nervous glances at clocks. An emergency board meeting had been scheduled for 9 a.m., exactly 24 hours before Hang Tech's deadline. Mara moved along the edge of the conference room with her tray of coffee, her body exhausted, but her mind sharp. Eviction in 30 hours. Hang Tech's final decision in 24. Her mother in the hospital. Her father's jade pen stolen. And Colin Marwick lurking like a shadow, armed with threats of immigration. Colin stood at the front of the boardroom now, presenting his translation on the giant display screen. His tone was confident, almost rehearsed. Mara kept her face blank as she poured water, but her stomach twisted. "As you'll see," Colin announced, "Hang Tech is offering exclusive manufacturing at rates 15% below market. Very minimal quality control oversight. Mara nearly stumbled. The real text demanded stricter quality protocols, not relaxed ones. And the phrase he mistranslated as minimal oversight actually detailed a complex inspection process. Then he continued with even greater danger. They're also open to accelerated production using what translates roughly as modified staff allocations. Mara's pulse spiked. No, 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 no. That phrase wasn't about staff allocation. It was legal language for optional workforce reduction, something that could cost 300 workers their jobs if interpreted the way Colin framed it. Her breath grew tight. Her legs felt weak. And then it slipped out. It's liodone moxing, she said softly. It refers to a thermal fluid modeling system, not labor changes. Silence crashed through the room. Every eye turned toward her. Halston lowered his glasses. Excuse me. Mara froze. But something inside her refused to be silent this time. He misread it, she said, her voice quiet but steady. Liodone moxing is a manufacturing concept. It has nothing to do with staffing. Colin gave a harsh laugh. Grant, she's a cleaner. She probably recognizes a character from a noodle box. Mara lifted her chin. My father, Adrian Solis, built your Asian market division. He taught me business Mandarin, technical Mandarin, and engineering terms. I've been translating since childhood. Recognition flickered in Halston's eyes. Solis. I remember that name. Mara continued before fear could shut her down. You've misinterpreted multiple sections. The proposal is strict, but fair. And the workforce clause you rewrote would violate at least 3 labor agreements. Murmurs spread across the table. Colin's shoulders tensed. Mara opened her translation profile on her phone. I work under the name Linguistic Bridge. 400 technical translations completed. 5-star ratings. Halston studied the page, his eyes narrowing in calculation. You claim you can translate the full proposal accurately? I already have 60% done, she answered. A board member leaned forward. And the Night Owl notes. Mara's heartbeat quickened. She nodded. Colin's jaw dropped. You? You're Night Owl. Halston turned from the saved translations to Colin, watching him, evaluating him. Then he returned to Mara. My offer stands, he said. Complete the translation by 9 a.m. tomorrow, and you get my full daily salary, $27,400. It would save her mother. Stop the eviction. Buy them time to breathe. But Mara had learned the cost of power. I want it in writing, she said. Payment, job security regardless of outcome, and guaranteed protection on my mother's immigration status. The board erupted into whispers. Halston studied her, this cleaner with a spine strong enough to negotiate in his own boardroom. Then he nodded slowly. Draft the agreement, he ordered his assistant. In return or property. Colin stiffened. What property? My jade pen, Mara said. The one you filed as suspicious. Forced, angry, Colin reached into his jacket and set the pen on the table. Halston slid it toward Mara like a ceremonial passing of power. The jade felt cool and familiar in her hand, almost alive. A small conference room was assigned to her. A laptop, a stack of printed documents, a clock ticking relentlessly toward 9 a.m. She worked furiously, translating line by line, pulling from memories of her father breaking down complex terms beside cups of jasmine tea. She made notes, reorganized clauses, clarified phrases. The deeper she read, the more she understood. The hang-tech deal wasn't as sinister as she feared. Demanding, yes. Strict, yes. But they offered retraining programs, transition support, mutual audit protection. The real danger wasn't hang-tech. It was Colin. By 3 a.m., her eyes burned. She completed almost 85% of the translation. Her hand cramped from writing. The pressure was suffocating. Her phone buzzed. A text from her neighbor at the hospital. Doctors want to keep your mother another day. Need $2,200 deposit. Another from her landlord. Eviction officer arriving tomorrow morning. No extensions. Her chest tightened. Everything inside her trembled. She pushed through it, typing, writing, cross-checking, whispering technical terms to herself to stay awake. At 4 a.m., exhaustion pulled her head down. Just for a second. Just one blink. Then, crash. Hot coffee splattered across her desk. across her notes, across the laptop keyboard. The cup rolled onto the floor. "Oh no," Collins said with a smirk. "Clumsy me." Mara leapt up, grabbing tissues, her heart racing. The coffee seeped deeper into the keys, the pages turning brown at the edges. "My files, my translation," she gasped. "No problem," Collins said. "I moved your digital files to my secure drive earlier." "But," he shrugged, "it looks like there's been some corruption. These things happen." The laptop flickered, then died. Mara's breath caught. He had deleted everything. "You're doing this on purpose," she whispered. Colin leaned in, voice dropping to a snake's hiss. "Grant expects perfection. One wrong clause and your shot is over. Go back to cleaning floors, Mara. It's what you're built for." He walked out, leaving her surrounded by soggy notes and a silent screen. The clock read 5 a.m. 4 hours left. No digital file. Half her notes ruined. Mother's bill due. Eviction officer coming. Hands shaking. Hope collapsing. Mara sat there frozen, heart slamming inside her chest, realizing the truth. Colin hadn't just spilled coffee. He had declared open war. And the sun was rising on the day she could lose everything she had ever fought for. The clock on the wall glowed 5:12 a.m. as Mara sat surrounded by ruined pages, the laptop lifeless, coffee dripping from the edge of the table like the last grains of an hourglass. Her pulse pounded so violently she could hear it in her ears. 4 hours left. 4 hours to rebuild work that had taken days. Colin's sabotage wasn't sloppy or emotional. It was precise, calculated, deadly efficient. He didn't just want her to fail. He wanted her destroyed. Mara pressed her palms to her eyes, fighting the rising panic. The walls felt too close, the overhead lights too bright. A part of her wanted to scream, to throw the broken laptop across the room, to collapse into grief and exhaustion. But she didn't, because she didn't have that luxury. Her mother needed medication. She needed the eviction stopped. She needed the money. She needed this translation finished. And she needed to survive Colin Marwick. With trembling hands, she reached for the jade pen. The once smooth surface was now stained with coffee, but its weight still grounded her. She inhaled slowly, remembering her father's voice. "Words build bridges, Mara. Bridges don't fall just because someone kicks at them." She pushed the soaked notes aside, searching for readable fragments. Many were ruined, but not all. She found key sections she had written during her lunch break the day before, still intact, still sharp. Her brain began reconstructing sentences, rewriting pages from memory, recalling terms the way a musician hears a song long after the radio shuts off. She worked fast, faster than exhaustion would allow, faster than fear could stop. But the clock kept moving. 6 a.m. Her hands cramped, her vision blurred, her breath came in shallow pulls. She kept writing. 7 a.m. Her back ached. Her words slipped into whispers. Her fingers shook. She kept writing. 7:43 a.m. Only one section remained, the most technical one, the one she'd been relying on her digital notes for, the one she barely had scribbles for. Her heart stuttered. She had seen the page only twice. Her father had taught the concept years ago. He had broken it down slowly, gently, patiently. She closed her eyes, summoning the memory. Her father's hands, the warmth of jasmine tea, the diagrams he'd drawn, the pride in his voice when she understood. She opened her eyes and began to write. Not copying, not guessing, remembering. By 8:20 a.m., her translation was as complete as it could be. Not perfect. Nothing this rushed could be truly perfect, but precise, accurate, technical, and her best possible work under sabotage, exhaustion, and a ticking clock. She pulled the pages together just as her phone buzzed. A message from the apartment manager. Eviction enforcement moved up. Officer arriving soon. Her throat tightened. Another message from her neighbor at the hospital. Your mother is asking for you. She's not looking good. Her world wobbled. But she pried herself off the chair, grabbed the translation, clutched the jade pen, and headed toward the boardroom, feet heavy as lead. At 8:47 a.m., she walked in. Grant Halston stood with arms crossed. Colin hovered behind him, a satisfied grin on his face, ready to watch her downfall. I expected this, Halston said, eyeing her disheveled state. People should stay in their lanes. Housekeepers clean. Executives execute. That's why I'm rich. He turned to his assistant. Draft a termination notice. Miss Solis violated multiple policies entering secure materials. Mara's heart slammed to the floor. But our agreement, she started, was contingent on delivery, Halston cut in. You failed. We'll have Translation Pro start from scratch this afternoon. Colin smirked. The humiliation was crushing. The injustice breathtaking. Her hands went cold. Her breath evaporated. Her vision blurred. Eviction. Hospital. Debt. All of it collapsing in the span of a minute. Halston waved a dismissive hand. You're done here. Something inside Mara broke. A gentle, fragile thing snapped clean through. Her gaze drifted to her bag, where a corner of a notebook stuck out. Her father's research journal. She had brought it for reference, but in the chaos, she'd forgotten it existed. A spark lit inside her. Wait. Halston paused, irritated. We're done, Miss Solis. My father worked on this exact technology, she said, pulling out the journal. The GX 500 semiconductor series. He was part of the original development team before Hangtech acquired the patent. Several board members leaned in. She flipped open the journal, revealing diagrams, notes, calculations, things the Hangtech document referenced but never explained. These notes, she said, her voice steadier now, contain proprietary details about the thermal modeling system your VP cannot understand. I can complete this translation because I understand what this proposal assumes the reader already knows. Colin took a step back. Halston looked from her to the journal, then to the nervous faces around the table. You have 10 minutes, he said. Finish whatever is missing. 10 minutes. Her hand shook. Her pulse roared. But she worked. She slid the jade pen across the pages, filling in gaps, adding clarifications, adjusting interpretations. Her father's handwriting guided her. His legacy held her steady. At 8:58 a.m., Mara placed the completed translation in front of Halston as the Hangtech video call began on a large monitor. Her chest tightened. Her breath held. Her entire life hung on the edge of this moment. Halston picked up the document. His assistant whispered, "The call is starting." A voice came through the speakers. "Perhaps," the man said, "Miss Solis should remain in the room." Mara froze. Halston looked confused. Colin paled. On the screen sat Kai Run, CEO of Hangtech, and beside him, Tao Min, her father's former colleague. "Mara Solis," Tao said warmly in Mandarin. "Your father spoke of you often. It is an honor." Mara's chest cracked open. Halston blinked. "You know her?" Kyra nodded. "We included complex technical language as a test. Someone at your company has been translating with exceptional accuracy." Colin shifted uncomfortably. Mara lowered her gaze, translating smoothly for the room, her voice steady even as her heart raced. Then Kai Run continued. "But we have concerns about your company's treatment of workers since Mr. Solis' departure." Mara translated. The board stiffened. "And the workforce clause?" she asked in Mandarin. "Was it intended as a requirement?" Kyron smiled. "No, a test. To see how your team interprets responsibility." Mara turned to the board. "It was a character test," she said, "to see if Halston Dynamics would choose exploitation or integrity." Call ended. Silence wrapped the room. Then Mara took out her phone, showing security footage she'd recovered of Colin pouring coffee on her computer and deleting her files. Halston's face went cold. "Colin Marwick," he said quietly, "you're fired. Security will escort you out." Colin's mask shattered. His voice cracked with denial as guards approached. Mara watched without expression. She had no energy left for anger, only clarity. As Colin was dragged out, Halston turned to Mara. "You," he said, "may have just saved this company." He picked up a pen and earned your place in it. But Mara was not prepared for what Hangtech asked for next. The conference room felt different after Colin Marwick was escorted out. Lighter somehow, though tension still coiled in every corner. The Hangtech call resumed, the digital heartbeat of the company's future echoing through the speakers. Kyron leaned forward on the screen, hands folded calmly. Before we finalize this partnership, he said, there is one condition. Mara stood near the wall, clutching her jade pen, sweat drying on her palms. She held her breath. She had no idea what Hang Tech was about to ask, but the board members leaned in anxiously, and even Grant Halston looked uneasy. Kai Ren continued, we want Miss Solis to serve as our cultural liaison and oversee all integration between our companies. A ripple of shock burst across the room. Halston blinked, stunned. You want her? Tao Min nodded. We worked with her father for years. He was one of the few who truly understood our business language, our culture, and our precision. Miss Solis has demonstrated the same mastery, and we trust her. Mara's heart thudded in her chest. Kai Ren's eyes softened. We insist. The word landed like a gavel. Halston's face shifted. Annoyance, realization, then something like reluctant admiration. He wasn't a man who enjoyed being corrected publicly, especially by a cleaner. But now, with millions on the line, his ego had no room to breathe. He nodded stiffly. Very well. Miss Solis will represent us. Mara lowered her gaze. Thank you, she whispered in Mandarin, translating the rest smoothly. With each sentence, she felt her father's presence beside her. His voice, his lessons, his belief in her. For the first time in years, she felt seen. The call ended with mutual bows and formal gratitude. When the screen went dark, silence hovered over the room like a hell breath. Then Halston spoke. Miss Solis, stay. The rest of the board filed out. Only Halston remained, arms folded. He studied her the way someone evaluates a priceless item they'd mistaken for trash. You understand what you've done here? He asked. You saved a multi-million-dollar deal. Your translation exposed sabotage. And Hang Tech just forced my hand in ways I've never allowed. Mara stayed still, the jade pen held like an anchor. Halston exhaled sharply. You negotiated better than some executives I've hired. You kept composure in front of international partners. And you held your own against a man who tried to bury you. His voice lowered. Tell the truth. Did you sabotage Colin? The question startled her. No, she said firmly. He sabotaged me. Halston didn't need convincing. He'd seen the footage. This company has wasted enough talent, he muttered. And I don't like losing money. So congratulations, Miss Solis. You've earned your part of the deal. He scribbled something on a checkbook, tore the page, and handed it to her. $27,400. His daily salary, promised and delivered. But that wasn't all. An email notification buzzed on her phone. An official message from Hang Tech. Cultural consultancy bonus, $50,000. Mara nearly lost her breath. $77,000 in total. Enough to cover her mother's care. Enough to stop the eviction. Enough to give them both stability for the first time in years. Halston's voice cut back in. Don't make me regret this, he said gruffly. She nodded, holding tight to her father's jade pen. I won't. The moment she stepped out of the boardroom, reality crashed into her. Eviction. Hospital. Her feet moved before her mind even caught up. She raced down the hallway, her shoes slapping the floor. She burst into the elevator, phone already to her ear. Please, she begged the apartment manager, voice trembling with urgency. I can pay everything, back rent, fees, right now. Just stop the eviction officer. A pause. A sigh. Then, you have 10 minutes. She sprinted out of the building, flagged a cab, and pressed the check to her chest the entire ride home. Her hands didn't stop shaking. At the apartment complex, she reached just as the eviction officer stepped out of his vehicle. Her legs nearly gave out. I can pay, she gasped, holding out the proof. Please. The officer checked the signatures, the dates, the amount. Then he nodded. You're clear. Mara's knees buckled with relief. She leaned against the wall, tears falling in silence. She wasn't done. She still had to reach the hospital. Minutes later, she sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand, whispering the news through tears. Mama, we're safe. We're okay. I did it. Her mother squeezed her fingers weakly. Tu papa estaría orgulloso. Your father would be proud. That night, when Mara got home, exhaustion crushed her, but victory held her up. She slept for the first time without fear. And the next morning, another message waited in her inbox from Halston Dynamics. Effective immediately. Mara Solis, Director of International Relations. A title she had once only dared to dream of. She walked into the building that day, not as a cleaner, but as a leader, past the same executives who once laughed at her. Many greeted her quietly, respectfully. She spent the day finalizing the Hang Tech partnership, finalizing cultural policies, guiding integration, signing forms, reviewing documents her father once dreamed of influencing. And in her new office, small, bright, filled with promise, she placed the jade pen in a crystal stand beside her father's old notebook. A symbol of legacy, a symbol of survival, a symbol of finding power where she was never meant to have any. Then came the board meeting. A larger room, a bigger table, a higher seat. Mara stepped inside. Executives stood as she entered. She blinked, stunned, but didn't show it. She walked confidently to her chair, the jade pen in her hand. She began her presentation in 3 languages, and every person in the room listened, because Mara Solis, the girl they dismissed, mocked, underestimated, now held their future in her carefully spoken words. But the story wasn't finished yet, because Mara was about to use her new power to change far more than her own life. 6 months later, the skyline outside Mara's office glowed like a promise she had once believed belonged to other people. Now it stretched before her every morning, glass, steel, and possibility. She sat behind a polished walnut desk, not the scratched plastic table she used to clean, reviewing reports and preparing for another board presentation. Her nameplate read, Mara Solis, Director of International Relations. The title still stunned her sometimes. Her office smelled faintly of orchids, her mother's favorite flower. A framed photo of her mother sat beside a small crystal stand holding the jade pen, no longer hidden in a pocket, no longer stolen or mocked. A symbol now of resilience, of language, of legacy. As sunlight hit the pen, memories of her father felt closer. His lessons, his laughter, his belief that bridges were built through words, not power. And now she had both. Her first act as director had been simple yet revolutionary. She created a scholarship program for employees' children, named after her father and focused on multilingual and STEM students. The second, she launched a hidden talents initiative across Halston Dynamics, inviting janitors, cafeteria workers, guards, assistants, anyone at any level to anonymously submit skills, diplomas, past careers, languages, or talents they were hiding because of circumstance or discrimination. The results stunned the company. A security guard with an engineering degree from Lagos. A cafeteria worker fluent in 5 languages. A help desk technician with a gift for product design. A maintenance worker who had been an accountant in his home country. A receptionist with a master's in cultural anthropology. Mara made sure none of them were invisible again. 28 employees were promoted within the first quarter. Word spread fast. The culture shifted. The board began to see that talent doesn't come packaged in tailored suits and polished accents. Halston himself, still driven by profit, still blunt, still difficult, had grown to rely on her. He wouldn't admit it openly, but everyone saw it. When he introduced her during a shareholders' meeting as one of the sharpest minds this company has ever discovered, the room erupted in applause. He didn't say he was wrong about her, but she didn't need him to. Her work spoke in the only language he understood. Numbers. Asian market share increased by 32%. Employee retention improved by 24%. 2 new international partnerships formed through her cultural expertise. 3 major lawsuits avoided because of her translation precision. Success didn't erase the pain of the past, but it transformed it. One afternoon, as she reviewed expansion plans, her assistant knocked softly. Your mother's physical therapist called, she said. Her recovery is ahead of schedule. Mara exhaled, relief warm and soft. After work, she visited her mother in their new 2-bedroom apartment near the rehabilitation center. They ate dinner together, talked in Spanish and Mandarin, and laughed about old memories. Her mother's eyes sparkled with pride. You built the bridge your father dreamed of. Back at Halston Dynamics, Mara walked through the hallways where she once pushed a cleaning cart. Employees greeted her in English, Spanish, Mandarin. Some nodded respectfully. Others smiled with genuine admiration. It felt surreal, powerful, beautiful. She paused near the executive floor elevator, remembering the first time she stood there, tired, unseen, ignored. Now she stepped in with purpose. The elevator doors opened to the boardroom, where she was scheduled to present her international expansion strategy, projected to create 450 new jobs and improve global partnerships. As she entered, the board members rose. A simple gesture, but to her it meant everything. Mara looked around the room where she'd first been humiliated, dismissed, underestimated, and then reborn. She took her seat at the head of the presentation table. Her father's jade pen rested patiently beside her notes. Today, she would lead the meeting her father was never allowed to attend. She clicked the first slide. "Good morning," she began, in English, then Spanish, then Mandarin. "We're here to discuss how embracing multiple perspectives transforms not only our leadership, but our bottom line." She guided the board through projections, cultural strategies, workforce reforms, expansions that uplifted rather than exploited. Every sentence resonated with purpose. Every point echoed her journey. Every decision carved a path for others like her. When she finished, the board erupted in applause. Mara inhaled deeply. She had risen from invisibility, from humiliation, from eviction notices and hospital bills and sabotage. She confronted cruelty, corruption, and a system built to overlook people like her. She didn't just survive it. She changed it. And as she looked out the boardroom window at the sunrise spreading across the city, she understood the truth. Her father was right. Words didn't just build bridges. They built futures. They built power. They built the woman she had finally become. She closed her notebook, stood tall, and allowed herself one last grateful breath. The girl they ignored was gone. The woman they now depended on had arrived. And the world was finally ready to hear her voice. If this story moved you, if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever fought silently for a chance, drop a comment below and tell us where you're tuning in from. Your voice matters here. And if you enjoyed today's cinematic tale, don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You'll never miss another heart-pounding story from Black Justice Tales, where hidden potential becomes unstoppable power. Here's a question for you. Would you have revealed your gift earlier than Mara, or stayed hidden until the last possible moment? Tell us in the comments. Your perspective might inspire someone else's breakthrough. And remember, every unseen person has a moment when the world finally looks up. Maybe your moment is closer than you think.